Good morning. So it's Christmas Eve, December 2020, and I was thinking what's the best topic to speak about today because tomorrow happens to be Christmas and happens to be the appearance day of Bhagavad Gita. So I thought it would be nice for me to speak a little bit about the Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita was spoken 5,000 years ago, and much before that, 120 million years ago, to the sun god by Krishna himself. And then Arjuna asks him, so how is it that you said you've spoken this before? He says, I don't remember. And Krishna says, you don't remember everything in the previous lives, but I do, because there's a difference between him and us. And so the Bhagavad Gita, yes, speaks about 5 key subject matters, just 700 verses. The 5 key subject matters is Ishvara, the Supreme Lord; Jiva, we as living entities; Kala, it's about eternal time; Karma, activities; and finally Prakriti, or material nature, this material world that we're in. So these are the 5 main key subject topics of Bhagavad Gita as it is. And what is the benefit of studying the Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita is one of those books that were always, like you said, it's not something that book someone reads just until a bigger novel comes out or something more interesting comes out. This has always been read hundreds and thousands of years ago, still read by great philosophers and very enlightened souls. So why is that? So Bhagavad Gita is really what you call, Bhagavad means Lord, Gita means song. So it's a song of the Lord, or song of God. It's a love song. It's a song of God's compassion for all the living entities who are suffering in this material world, from birth, death, old age, disease, from miseries caused by mind and body, which means adhyatmic, miseries caused by natural disasters, which is called adhidaivic, like the fires and earthquakes we have, mind and body; adhyatmic, which is all, the stress and depression and all the physical illnesses we go through. And then the miseries caused adhibhotic, which is miseries caused by other living entities. So Krishna, God, the Supreme Lord, is looking at all of us and he's feeling compassion. They don't need to go through all of that. They don't need to go through all of that. So he speaks the Bhagavad Gita, which is a way to attract the souls back to the transcendent world, to the spiritual realm, where we don't have to go through all these sort of sufferings. It's a song of compassion of the Lord. It's a song of love. He's attracting us back to where we truly belong. Just like a fish out of water is on land, even if you can build it the most beautiful palace, it's not going to be happy. The fish is only going to be happy when you put it back in water. So in the same way, Bhagavad Gita is understanding about our true core, our essence, who are we? So we don't have an identity crisis, which is the whole problem, the whole reason of so much suffering. So like the fish, when it knows what its nature is and it's in its original nature, it's satisfied, it's happy. So in the same way, the fish out of water is never going to be happy. So who are we? Understanding who we are and connecting with our source. Like we said, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not human beings having a spiritual experience. So at the core, we are these spirit souls. So we need to reconnect with our spiritual source. And that is what the Bhagavad Gita is. It's because it's about Arjuna, who's having an identity crisis, really. I mean, who am I? What am I supposed to do? What is my duty? Why do I have to do this? And things like that. Miseries are imposed on us beyond, without our wanting it. So why is that? So Bhagavad Gita is directly 700 verses altogether, out of which 574 verses are spoken by Krishna 84 verses are spoken by Arjuna and 84 spoken by Sanjaya, and only one verse spoken by Dhritarashtra. So mainly it's spoken, the whole Bhagavad Gita is the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself, Lord Krishna. So by studying the Bhagavad Gita, why is it so important? Why is it it consists of universal spiritual principles that are applicable to everyone. Doesn't matter whether you're Hindu, Christian, Muslim, black, white, old, young, whatever. It's applicable to everyone, just like the law of gravity. If someone jumps from a building, he's going to face the law of gravity, irrelevant of, whether he's Hindu or Muslim or black or white or old. So same thing, these principles are applicable to everyone. And by studying the Bhagavad Gita and understanding the key subject matters in the Bhagavad Gita, one can be freed from lamentation, fear, hankering. Basically he gets transformation, protection. He reconnects with our source. Who am I? I am this beautiful, shining spirit soul, which is eternal, full of bliss, full of knowledge, a spark of God. So, yes, this is the main key reason. So how is it that by reading Bhagavad Gita we can free ourselves from lamentation, hankering, fear? Because we think about it, most of our lamentation is like fear, and fear is, of fear of losing what we have in this world. Lamenting of what we've lost in this material world, But when you understand who we are, spirit souls, eternal beings, part and parcel of God, we understand everything belongs to God, the super soul, the divine source. So then everything that we have, we see it from a spirit of more detachment. It's not mine. It's given by Krishna, by God to us, to use in His service. So if He takes it away, it's not mine anyway, and if He gives it to me, I use it in His service. We use God's resources in His service. So utilizing that. And so there's this sense of detachment. If something's taken away, it's not mine anyway, So it's just like someone lends you something, you don't get that attached to it because it's not mine anyway. I'm going to have to return it to them sooner or later. So same thing like that. Even this whole body, goes. Nothing remains in this material world. It's all temporary. But if we understand our true source as spirit soul and connect everything to eternality, and don't let the temporary things bother us too much, connecting. We use those things in this world for our advancement, spiritual advancement. We dovetail everything in what you call God consciousness. But we don't need to be completely, like you said, sucked into it in a way that we don't realize, who we really are, forgetting our real identity as a spirit soul. So, even Bhagavad Gita can be explained in so many different ways. People put their own commentaries, but how do we read the Bhagavad Gita? We can read it from different lights. And the sad thing is, we can read it. That is why it's really important to read Bhagavad Gita as it is, or the way it's been presented by enlightened souls, souls who are transcendent, or directly, or saying just directly the words of Krishna, not adding our own interpretation, because we are humans that may have flaws. I spoke about that in my last lecture, with the 4 flaws we have as humans. So yeah, that's really important that we, there's this story about in India, a man goes to a shop and he sees a refrigerator. He says, I want to buy that refrigerator. And the shopkeeper looks at him strangely and says, no, I'm not selling that to you. Then he says, why not? He says, no, I'm just not selling it to you. Don't waste my time. Please just go away. So the man thought, that's really strange. He said, why is he not? I'll just change my form. And he dressed up like a lady and he came back and he says, will you sell that refrigerator to me? And he says, no, I just told you I'm not going to sell it to you. So please go away. And he goes away and he's bewildered. He says, how did he know it was me? So he came back this time dressed up in like a burqa, the Muslim, thing where your face is covered. And he said, oh, I'd like to buy that refrigerator. And he said, please go away. How many times do I have to tell you I'm not going to sell it to you? So he says, gosh, Mary says, what is it? And he says, how do you know it's me, the same person? Why do you keep saying? He says, I've already told you to go away. Why do you keep coming back? Well, how do you know it's me in the first place? And why don't you want to sell it to me? And he said, well, how I know it was you, because firstly, the thing that you're calling a refrigerator, actually, it's not a refrigerator. It's another appliance. It's a washing machine. So you don't even know it's a refrigerator. And the problem with that is, if you don't even know what it is and you buy it, and then later you're going to come back and complain that, hey, this is not doing what I wanted it to do. You've sold me a wrong product, and it's going to be a problem with customers like that if you don't even know what you're buying. So that is why I didn't want to sell it to you. And how did I know you're the same person coming back in all these different forms? It's because every time you came back, you said the same thing. Can you sell me that refrigerator? And it's not a refrigerator, so I know it's you. So, yeah, Bhagavad Gita can be, comment. People can give their comments and things like that. And we can read it from our own different perspectives. And Krishna's saying, he says, no, we don't really get the actual true divine message in there if we read it from all these different perspectives rather than the perspective of Krishna himself or from the light of souls who are transcendent. So yes, that's, in one sense, it said this knowledge is secret. There's Rajavidya Rajaguyam, one of the verses in the Gita says, this knowledge is more secret. And people say, how is it secret? I mean, Bhagavad Gita is out everywhere. Anyone is allowed to read it. But secret in that sense, the real true message won't be revealed to you if you don't, if you're not ready for it, if you're not hearing it from a right source. Right, so that's a little bit of introduction for Bhagavad Gita and why it's really important. If you read it and hear it from the right source properly as it is, Gita, Krishna's word as it is, it will be the most transformational literature that ever exists. And you'll get protection, you'll get shelter, you'll have the knowledge to face all the challenges in this world and to rise beyond it, to get the strength. Just like Arjuna in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, he had a real difficulty. He was facing a terrible challenge in life, having to fight a war against his own most beloved relatives. And after listening to Bhagavad Gita, he felt like, okay, clear. He was clear, he was doubt-free, he was feeling strong, he was feeling assertive, he was feeling confident and all those qualities. So this is what the Gita can give you if you really hear it in a proper light. So I'm just going to share a little brief of the summary of Gita, all the different words which I get from Krishna.com. So chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita, there are 18 chapters altogether, 700 verses. Chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita is about the opposing army standing poised for a battle. Arjuna, the mighty warrior, sees his intimate relatives, teachers, friends in both armies, and he's ready to fight who are ready to fight and sacrifice their lives. And overcome by grief and pity, Arjuna falls in his strength. His mind becomes bewildered and he gives up his determination to fight. Yeah, so in life, all of us, sometimes go through moments like that, when we're faced a real challenge and you just become weak, and it's Arjuna almost like having a nervous breakdown. I can't do this, So that's chapter 1. It's just setting the scene, what was going on for Arjuna emotionally. And then chapter 2 says the contents of the Gita summarized. At this point, Arjuna submits to Lord Krishna as his disciple. And Krishna begins his teachings to Arjuna by explaining the fundamental distinction between the temporary material body and the eternal spiritual soul. So he's clearing his identity crisis. The Lord explains the process of transmigration, the nature of selfless service to the Supreme, and the characteristics of a self-realized person. So that's in chapter 2. And chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita is Karma Yoga. It's everyone must engage in some sort of activity in this material world. We all have to be, engaged. But actions can either bind us to this material world or liberate us from it. So by acting for the pleasure of the Supreme without selfish motives, one can be liberated from the law of karma, the chain of action and reaction, and attain transcendental knowledge of the self and the Supreme. That's chapter 3. So chapter 4 is titled Transcendental Knowledge. Transcendental knowledge, the spiritual knowledge of the soul, is called transcendental knowledge of God and of their relationship. Who's the soul? Who are we, living entities? Who is God? What is our relationship? So this knowledge is both purifying and liberating. Such knowledge is the fruit of selfless devotional action. The Lord explains the remote story of the Gita, the purpose and the significance of his periodic descents to the material world, and the necessity of approaching a guru or a realized teacher. That's chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 5 is entitled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna or God Consciousness. Outwardly performing all actions but inwardly renouncing their fruits, the wise man, purified by the fire of transcendental knowledge, attains peace, detachment, forbearance, spiritual vision, and bliss. Chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita is entitled Dhyana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, is a mechanical meditative practice. It controls the mind and the senses to focus concentration on Paramatma feature or the Supersoul feature of the Lord, which is situated within the heart. This practice culminates in Samadhi or full consciousness of the Supreme. Chapter 7, Bhagavad Gita, Knowledge of the Absolute Truth. Knowledge of the Absolute. Lord Krishna is the Supreme Truth, the supreme cause and sustaining force of everything, both material and spiritual. So he's the source of all sources, the cause of all causes. Advanced souls surrender unto him in devotion, whereas impious souls divert their minds to other objects of worship. So it's about focusing on the Supreme Absolute Truth. Chapter 8, Bhagavad Gita, entitled Attaining the Supreme. By remembering Lord Krishna in devotion throughout one's life, and especially at the time of death, one can attain to his supreme abode beyond the material world. So that would be a liberation from birth, death, old age, disease, adhyatmic, adhidaivic, adibodic mysteries, like I mentioned earlier before, natural disasters, mind and body, other living entities. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge. So chapter 9, like a sandwich, right in the center of the sandwich is where you have the real patty, the real juice or the real essence, the cream of it. Krishna is giving right in the middle. Bhagavad Gita is 18 chapters. Chapter 9 is the centerpiece, which is the real, like the sandwich, the real patty is in the middle. And what is it? Chapter 9, entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge. Lord Krishna is the Supreme Godhead and the supreme object of worship. Krishna is saying that. The soul is eternally related to him through transcendental devotional service of bhakti. By reviving one's pure devotion, one returns to Krishna and the spiritual realm. So that's the most confidential knowledge, Bhagavad Gita. Remember, it's about reviving our devotion to the Supreme Lord. Chapter 10, the opulence of the Absolute. All wondrous phenomena showing power, beauty, grandeur, sublimity, either in the material world or in the spiritual world, are but partial manifestations of Krishna's divine energies in opulence. As the supreme cause of all causes and support and essence of everything. Krishna is the supreme object of worship for all living beings. Krishna is just another name of God. Some people call him Yahweh, Allah, Jehovah, whatever you want to call, but Krishna is a very personal name of God, which means the all-attractive person. So it's a very special name of God, if you like, he's all attractive, Bhagavad Gita chapter 11, entitled The Universal Form. Lord Krishna grants Arjuna divine vision and reveals his spectacular unlimited form as the cosmic universe in this chapter. Thus he conclusively establishes his divinity. Krishna explains that his own all-beautiful human-like form is the original form of Godhead. One can perceive this form only by pure devotional service. Even in the Bible, I think it says man is made in the form of God or image of God. So yes, he's confirming here the two-handed form of Krishna is the original form, the Supreme Lord. Generally, people tend to think it's got to be something big. If it's God, it's got to be different from us because we kind of seeing it too, but there's a big difference in one sense. It is like us in the sense his most personal form is his two hands, two legs, and just like our form. But it's a spiritual form, unlike ours is material. Our body is material, whereas Krishna's body is spiritual. But it's an image of like the human. So chapter 12, Bhagavad Gita, entitled Devotional Service. Again, here it stresses Bhakti Yoga, or pure devotional service to Lord Krishna, is the highest and most expedient means for attaining pure love of Krishna, which is the highest end of spiritual existence. So attaining pure love for God is the highest means for all our spiritual existence or the purpose of our human goal. So those who follow this supreme path develop divine qualities. So just by following this path, we develop divine or Krishna-like or God-like qualities. And once you develop those qualities, nothing in this material world will really affect us in the same way anymore. Chapter 13, entitled Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. One who understands the difference between the body, the soul, and the supersoul, beyond them, both attains liberation from this material world. So one who understands the difference between the body, the soul, and the supersoul, beyond them, both attains liberation from this material world. So that's the real essence, knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. We need to understand the difference. Who are we? Who is God? What's the difference, and how we attain, freedom from this material nature. Chapter 14, Bhagavad Gita, entitled The Three Modes of Material Nature. So we are in this material world that we are all controlled by three modes in here. The embodied souls are under the control of three modes or qualities of material nature. They're called the goodness, the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. If we really look at ourselves every time, we can, observe, we can say, okay, let's see, I'm in the mode of ignorance right now. I'm the mode of passion right now. I'm the mode of goodness right now. So if we study this chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, we will be able to catch ourselves and find which mode we're in and hopefully correct ourselves. So Lord Krishna explains what these modes are, how they act upon us, and how one transcends them, and the symptoms of one who has attained the transcendental state. That's important to know what the symptoms are. Otherwise, we maybe confuse someone else, crazy or in the lower modes, to be in the modes, in a higher, what you call pure goodness, a spiritual mode. So it's important to understand these modes of nature. Chapter 15. The Yoga of the Supreme Person. The ultimate purpose of Vedic knowledge is to detach oneself from the entanglement of material world and to understand Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who understands Krishna's supreme identity surrenders unto him and engages in his devotional service. Chapter 16, the divine and demoniac natures. Those who possess demoniac qualities and who live whimsically without following the regulations of the scriptures attain lower births and further material bondage. But those who possess divine qualities and regulated lives, abiding by scriptural authority, gradually attain spiritual perfection. Chapter 17, the divisions of faith. There are 3 types of faith, corresponding to and evolving from 3 modes of material nature. Acts performed by those whose faith is in passion and ignorance yield only impermanent material results, whereas acts performed in goodness, in accord with scriptural injunctions, purify the heart and lead to pure faith in Lord Krishna and devotion to him. Last and final chapter, chapter 18, Bhagavad Gita, the conclusion, it's titled The Perfection of Renunciation. Krishna explains in this chapter the meaning of renunciation and the effects of the modes of nature on human consciousness and activity, how these modes affect our activity and our consciousness. He explains Brahman realization, the glories of the Bhagavad Gita, and the ultimate conclusion of the Gita. The highest path of religion is absolute, unconditional loving surrender unto Lord Krishna, which frees one from all sins, brings one to complete enlightenment, enables one to return to Krishna's eternal spiritual abode. Okay, so that's the end of a summary of the 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Anybody who would like to know any questions, comments, feedback, you can also directly contact me at consciousliving.com. Conscious Living, I'll post my email, clcoach9@gmail.com. CL standing for Conscious Living. So clcoach9@gmail.com. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this.